What's up? Good morning, everyone. Just to say, Tina gives amazing hugs, so don't miss that chance. That's a rare, not rare, but a worthy opportunity. Nice to see you all this morning. I'm going to talk about some things that are some new ideas for me to be sharing publicly in a venue like this. And even this talk, I'm cramming a lot of stuff in, just because there's so much to talk about, and we could go longer, but. You know, I'm a creative person, I identify as a creative person, and I think of other creative people as like my tribe, my peers that I'm advocating for, looking for, and there's a lot of doom out there for us these days. There's a lot of doom, and the doom is like very well founded. There's some good, there's a lot of logic to the doom. However, it's not the whole story. It's not the whole story. And my feeling is that this is absolutely an amazing time. And it's getting better, and it will only continue to get better. And that we're maybe at the end of something, but we're not at the end. We're also at the beginning of something. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that is today. But, you know, we have to start with the doom. And I have to start with my own doom. A few years ago, I'd left Kickstarter and was out there working as a creator, writing a newsletter, running a community. I'd written a book, and I'd found myself with thousands of people that I was holding space for every week and doing things with, both pre and during COVID, and was just surrounded by wonderful people and loved it. Loved so much of it, however, was actually just sad all the time. And I realized it's because I didn't really feel a strong sense of connection. There's an audience that I talked to, but it wasn't a peer relationship. And instead, I found myself in this position of holding on to like all this responsibility, and doing things on behalf of other people for which I did receive compensation, you know, all sorts of things, but like, how did it speak to me? And it really didn't. And I found myself doing what I wanted and just getting unhappier each day. So I eventually did the embarrassing thing of, you know, we're going on hiatus and da-da-da-da-da, and ended up spending some time just reading. What I do is I just read things when I want to reset. And this is a book I've read many times before called Our Band Could Be Your Life by Michael Azerrad. And this is basically an oral history of 12 different punk bands and how they started. And it's like Sonic Youth, Black Flag, Minor Threat. And what each of these stories tells is that there's some band in the middle of nowhere or somewhere making really noisy music. No record label wanted to put them out. So instead, they made their own label and put themselves out, which just simply involved creating a logo and a P.O. box. That was it. And there's all these amazing labels that have started in this similar way, just like basically someone wanting to put themselves out or a friend. But the magic that happened was the second that they would publish that first thing, like 4 other releases would be ready to come in behind them. People that felt inspired, they got a sense of permission that like, I want to make music like you, or I do make music like you. And it just made me appreciate how this structure is not just like publishing work, it's manifesting more of that culture. It's just like a different way of thinking. Don't have time for it, but there's another story around the Royal Society, which invented modern science in actually a very similar way of zines and people publishing in a shared space. But I came to think of a structure like this as something that's not just specific to music, but this label model is something that could apply to any creative form. And I thought of this as a meta label. And it's where you have some group of people who have some shared purpose. That purpose could be punk rock, it could be reggae, it could be getting together on a Friday morning to talk about creativity. There's some shared purpose that brings them together. There's some squad, there's some group of people who make it happen. Some core group, maybe a larger, wider circle of people. There's releases, there's some public thing that happens. You're creating public touch points for people to come in and be a part of it, and for people to understand what your group is doing. And finally, some rules of participation, how money gets shared, how things operate. But that this is how those indie record labels were run, this is how the Royal Society is run, this is effectively even like A24 or an art gallery or even a book publisher is using a structure like this. And so I found a group of partners, a group of collaborators. I found my own transition from being alone to being in collaboration with others, and started making projects to explore this idea. So one of the first things we made was we made a little like tarot card RPG journey where you and your group could identify what are your values according to that thing I just showed you. We made a little Discord bot where people could collectively tweet together, or like you put things in a chat, and if it gets enough upvotes, it would automatically send off from someone's Twitter account, so like a collective voice. And we did things like made a little zine that we put in front of our office on Canal Street in a newspaper box and gave away 100 of these every day for several months. And these were all projects we were making of just trying to, how do we operate in this mode of behavior? How do we adopt this new way of seeing? And ultimately, this did allow me to break this pattern and to find myself in a place of making things all the time, never really feeling alone with it, constantly being in dialogue with other people, and just a different relationship to the world. We'll come back to this. But, it's very easy to look at where we are and just assume there is like a status quo that is permanent and, whatever, it's going to stay here, it's always been here. But really, these are things that you want to look back and understand more of why are the things we have the way that they are. And there's two words that are just so bedrock to certainly everyone in this room of both art and creativity that we accept as universal things that have always meant what we think that they mean and that have always been here. But the truth is that is not the truth. So if you think about the invention of art, we're going to zoom through this pretty quick, don't worry. Here's just 4 books I've super enjoyed reading to understand this. The Lives of Most Eminent Painters, Sculptors, very famous book. The Invention of Art, excellent. These Eric Hobsbawm books are phenomenal about the history of the world. And finally, Ben Davis, art critic for ArtNet, his book, 9.5 Theses on Art and Class is excellent. But what you see when you look at the invention or the history of art is that if you think of art as being like a representative image of some kind, then we have cave paintings and things like that. If we think of art as being like portraits and more literal representations, those things have been around since the 1400s, and those were generally done out of patronage to a rich person, and it was about edifying them and cementing them in history. But if we get into like art as self-expression, art as expression of talent and imagination, then we're getting into like early 19th century. Paris is of Salon after the French Revolution is when that's really starting. And then if we think about commercial art, like people buying, trading paintings and like artists are stars, we're talking more the 1930s to 1950s that really started to happen. So art, the way that we think of it today, is, I would say, less than 100 years old. Now, if you look at creativity, what word could be more universal than creativity? It's what made it all, right? Well, actually, creativity was a concept and even a word invented in the 1940s by a United States Defense Department research grant to try to find divergent thinkers to be officers in the military and to solve a widespread concern among social scientists at the time, which is that they were noticing that Americans in early capitalism were unhappy. There were more white-collar workers than blue-collar workers for the first time. There was a modern concern of just like this disenchantment. And there was a search for some essence that we could use to find those divergent, more individualistic thinkers. And if we could find it, we could teach it to people. So there was a whole period of time of like the Rorschach test was an example of this, of trying to find how creative is someone, putting like modules on people's brains to find where creativity is in the brain. And Abraham Maslow, Timothy Leary, 2 of the first creativity researchers. The word creativity entered the dictionary for the first time in 1966, began being used in the year 1950, first as like a corporate buzzword. And it was thought of as a democratic form of genius that anyone could access. And so this was an explicit plan by the United States government in the 1940s to try to solve what were some then pressing problems that have produced an unbelievable result. In 1957, there was a bill passed that remade the United States education system to make it creative. Creative writing entered the school system for the first time in the 1960s. Like, I'm a second-generation creative American. It's how I've been brought up. I'm not joking. I mean, it's how I've been brought up, right? And so this is less than 100 years old. We think of creativity as universal. It's always been here. It's the essence. It's the fountain. It's 100 years old. There is something true that they tapped into. But there weren't words like it before. It was like imagination, providence, things that had a different meaning. But this idea of like industriously making things better was a new concept. And importantly, creativity was always thought of as a commercial application. It was government, it was advertising agencies. It was thought of as a commercial application to make things better. So these two histories are helpful when we look at four words, four titles of types of people that are similar-ish, but there are slight differences between them. Commercial artist maybe is not a phrase people use as much now, but for a long time that was the word for a designer, anyone that worked professionally inside a company and had some sort of creative job. But we could see the lines between these people. So an artist is self-employed self-expression. A creator is self-employed commercial expression. Remember, creativity is about commercial applications of things, and that a creator is working within platforms and generally working directly for pay. So self-employed commercial expression. A commercial artist is commercially employed commercial expression. And then creative, a term that I hear people under 25 use to describe creative people. Don't do it. Creative is an advertising word used to dehumanize creative people. And that is brand-employed, branded expression. But these are like different things. Similar vibe space, but quite distinct. And they have different origin points. And we today are swimming in all of these things. And so there's just a tremendous amount of energy and growing power coming from these worlds. Like if I look at the 21st century, we'll touch on this a little bit later, but like the first 25 years, we're now a quarter way into the 21st century, I would posit that creativity is one of the fastest growing industries of anything in this century, right? This is on the rise. And yet, here's the doom. And despite this, creative people are excluded from the full benefits of capitalism. So the greatest benefits of capitalism is collective wealth creation. You don't just make money from your own labor. You're part of something bigger. Where is that for creative people? You could be in a band, you could be in a movie, you could be in a bigger production, maybe. That's more of like a job. But where is wealth creation? And where is that structure that lets us do things together rather than just compete against each other in like this one-off, mano-a-mano thing? Now, this is where we are now. MetaLabel, last week, we operate through these spring, summer, fall, winter collections of we update our product and introduce new artists and tell a story. And we told the one this past week about, we had a eulogy for the lonely economy that we just left. We remember the promises it made and it did not keep. And this is a symbol of this. This is this symbol of, we're not thought of as people that could do things together, anything bigger. We're just a bunch of 1099 NPCs running around. And nobody really cares about us. They want our content for their training models. They used to. But on our little website, you see there's the light dark mode in the top right there. This is the dark. Here's the light mode. We move into the bloom. But this is not just a crisis point, it's a turning point. It's an inflection point. Because by the end of this century, creative people are going to be the wealthiest and most powerful group of all, right there at the top. And this is going to happen for a bunch of different reasons. One is that AI is going to commoditize most things. Most things. What will be distinct are voices, opinions, personalities. And who has that but creative people? In a world where more and more things are commoditized, I think that means more of those tools of commodification will also be in the hands of creative people. And I ultimately see us shining in that world. I think our skill set continues to be valuable. The whole creator economy, people talk to death about the creator economy. The phrase is like 3 years old, by the way. Ridiculous. But like by the end of by 2030, it's like a $900 billion industry. Being a creator as a profession, it's about 15 years old. This is not the beginning. This is not the end. This is the beginning. This is not the peak. And so there's a tremendous change that's going to happen. And it's not going to kick off what we want on its own. But new forms can help get us there. So my experience with new forms started with working on Kickstarter and experienced how years of us trying to explain to people what later came to be called crowdfunding, where you're like, here's a conditional purchase based on a collective decision. You watch the eyes glaze over. You're like, how is this going to work? But the second that got expressed as a software that felt like a game, big numbers, like in a second, people would get it. Be like, dude, why didn't you tell me? Oh my God, I tried. And what it came to feel like for me was that there had been a wall that all of us creative people have been running up against about how do I get money to make my thing? And the wall we've been running up to is like there's 5 institutions that might consider us. Everybody's trying to go there. Everyone else trying to go there is more credentialed than us. Why even try? We give up. And instead of that wall, Kickstarter just built a door there. It's just a door. And it instantly felt obvious. People streamed through. It's like almost $10 billion that's changed hands for people's ideas, 15, 16 years later. That's a new form. A new form. My hope is that MetaLabel can similarly be a form like that helps people follow the same journey I've gone through of just sad boy to squad boy. I don't even know. I didn't think that one through. Sorry. But so, what we tried to optimize MetaLabel for is for you as a creative person to release work and not do it on your own. So this is a book I've made with 10 other authors. The Dark Forest Anthology of the Internet. You could see all of our little names up there, a little face pile. But this is a book combining pieces by a dozen internet stars and puts it together in a book. We've sold a couple thousand copies of this over the past year. But because MetaLabel has this entire structure to help you do things together, you can actually build a split and a royalty into anything you make. So when we published that book, we set what percentage of the money each person should receive. We each got 10% of the money. You set how much money to recoup, like you got to pay the printer back the $8,000, so like take that out first. You could set money to set aside to save for later to make another project. And so that works. Now, you use a Stripe, it's phenomenal. And so like $80,000 has flowed through that book, and it's all automatically flowed to each person. We built a little treasury of another $15K that we're using to publish another book by another author coming out this month. And so this process of just some internet randos get together in a Telegram group, this is the true story, get together in a Telegram group, have a secret conspiracy, plot together, make this thing, publish it. Everyone has made at least $5,000 in the past year personally, no one having to work that hard except me and our designer, but that's fine. We love it. We enjoy it. And now we're putting out another book by someone else and another book by someone else, and suddenly like I'm a part of something. Even more than like having made something, I'm a part of something, and like people are reaching out. Can you do stuff with me? It's the story of the label early on. Like it's happening. I'm experiencing it. It's cool. And so there's just a whole product set that makes it just stupid easy. Set the percentage, click save, set the budget, click save, and it just automatically does it all. This is like the dashboard for the Dark Forest from a few weeks ago. So this is like you log in, you see this, you can direct money, all that. But I had an interesting thing happen where the Dark Forest Collective, we were making a lot of money last year, and I was signed a new book by a new author, Nadia Asparova, incredible author, a book called Anti-Memetics. It's going to be a famous book, just telling you. Comes out in about a month, Anti-Memetics. And started to see how our project was going to end up making like 6 figures in revenue at some point in the next month or two. And realized that I was silly to be so YOLO with how I was running this project and just using my split thing, my software to solve everything. I should make some sort of legal structure to represent us. And I was actually dissatisfied with the options that were available. Like you could become an LLC, which is the typical thing, the generic option. That puts a legal shield over a project, but it doesn't help you like share the pie or grow it. It's just like protection. You could be a C corporation, which gets you some of those things, but then you're like taxed twice, corporate and personal income, and there's so much overhead. You could be in a nonprofit and then have a lot of red tape. And then there are more advanced options that I wasn't educated enough to really deal with. But I started to think about what if we could create a new structure for a project like ours, and actually a new structure for creative work, period. With Kickstarter, I had some experience of seeing how public benefit corporations were made a law. This is a PBC, not a B Corp. That's another story. And seeing how something like that became a law and like that new possibility was made. So I reached out to someone I knew who knows a lot of interesting people, and soon we were talking to all these lawyers, and lawyers who had made new corporate forms before, and lawyers who had made the PBC before. And for the past year, I've been working on this project to try to develop this new structure for creative work. And it will become public more widely next month, but excited to talk about it a bit today. And we call it the Artist Corporation. And you could think of the Artist Corporation as like a company, as like a C Corp, except it's made specifically for how creative people do things. So we could imagine that there's a band, and to start, they have an artist corp right from the beginning. And so from the beginning, they're not just 5 individuals, they're collective owners of a project that has the right to own their songs, that can own their gear, manage their affairs, that when they start to get paid, that money can automatically flow to members according to preset splits, or be saved into a treasury for future projects, or to be used to get access to better health care or other benefits. As an A Corp, you're also able to receive both nonprofit funding as well as commercial forms of revenue without a whole bunch of hurdles to jump through. And if a bigger institution comes along, like a record label, rather than that group automatically selling away the intellectual property rights to their work, which has been in the convention for the last 80 years, instead, as an A Corp, they have the ability to issue shares and create equity like a startup can. And so you could imagine instead that label might make an investment in that artist corporation, valuing them at a higher number, so allowing the artist to be worth more, to have better equity and leverage, and allowing both parties to benefit if things went well. Now, a lot of these are things that a C Corp, a normal company, can do pretty easily right now. Not all of these, but most of these. And there's nothing here that's truly mind-blowingly novel. However, this is not a set of capacities, of capabilities that creative people have had until now. This ability to create shares, to create equity, to generate real collective wealth and value from their work. This is a new frontier. And this is a space that I think things are going to go. So there's a website, artistcorporations.com, where you can learn more. And importantly, we have on there an area where we ask creative people to share your own situation. What do you do? What's your financial situation like right now? What do you need? What's hard for you? What do you want to see? We're taking in a lot of input and a lot of data points as we come to crafting the final language of all this, but that would be a super helpful way to contribute. And ultimately, to do this, we are going to pass a law. You have to pass laws. We'll pass laws at state levels, which is where corporations and legal structures are formed. And we think there's a good chance we'll have the first of those passed next year. But this is the platform for creative people to not just be on our own, to not be 1099 NPCs, to not be 18th century traveling peddlers, but for us to be real participants and players in culture and our economy. And we're going to crush it at this. We are. No one has ever accused a creative person of being good at operations, for sure. There will be some rough transitionary moments, but ultimately, what we're talking about here is, like, to date, creative people have always sat at somebody else's table. That's all we do. We're looked at as charity, or we're looked at as a financial asset that can be exploited. That's really the two modes, or like free entertainment. And but this is ours. This is something that we can truly build and that we can interface with the world, not being this weak little artist, creative person, but something with real stature and standing that is legitimate, that is important, whose work has value, and is going to be seen increasingly that way in society at large. Even for the rest of society to even see these words of artist corporation together, I think will be powerful and help recontextualize what it is that we do. And ultimately, I think this nets out in the creative century. The creative century. The 20th century is shaped by Cold War competition and multinational corporations. This century is going to be shaped by small groups of people in group chats, plotting conspiracies and then launching them on Main. For real. I mean, the White House does it. And again, if you look at the slope of like creative output, creative consumption, the first 25 years of this century, it's straight up. And yeah, we're like, everybody already has a podcast and everybody's got everybody. Yeah, it's just getting started. It's still like mainly the West for certain types of content and things, but like it's just going to keep going. It's just going to keep going. And we're going to be able to create the tools, the structures that let us be more and more real and that take us beyond this phase where we are right now. And so the transition that I just have personally experienced in the past 5 years, started from me staring into this abyss of doom saying, I'm doing everything that I want and I'm unhappy and I don't know what to do about it and I see no way out. I see no way out. To, I'm reaching towards some unknown feeling of like, maybe there's things in the past I can learn from, find amazing other humans who feel the same. We hold hands together, step through a door that we make for ourselves, and then see this giant A and this bigger vision on the other side. And like, this is just, my journey is just a microcosm of like all of us. This is my version. We're all going to have our versions of this. But like this is the transition. This is the transition that we're in now. And so, again, the thought I would leave you with is that this isn't the end. This is the beginning. Thank you.